Someone asks you for a favor. You're exhausted. You're already overcommitted. You have no time, no energy, and honestly, you don't even want to do it. But the word comes out of your mouth before you can stop it. Yes. And immediately you feel it. That sinking feeling in your stomach. The resentment, the anger at them for asking, but mostly at yourself for saying yes when every part of you wanted to say no. So you do it. You show up, you help, you sacrifice your time, your energy, your boundaries, and they thank you. But you're not happy. You're exhausted and a little bit furious. If this is you, if you can't say no even when you desperately want to, there's a deep psychological reason why. This is MindTrip, and today we're exploring the psychology of people who can't say no. Here is what we're actually talking about. This isn't about being helpful. It's not about being kind or generous or a good person. This is about people-pleasing. And people-pleasing isn't kindness, it's a nervous system response. You say yes when you mean no. You agree when you disagree. You sacrifice your needs, your time, your energy to make others comfortable. Not because you want to, but because saying no feels dangerous. And I mean that literally, dangerous. For you, saying no triggers anxiety, guilt, fear, sometimes even physical panic. Your heart races, your throat tightens. You imagine their disappointment, their anger, their rejection. So you say yes, because yes feels safer. Yes keeps the peace. Yes means you won't be abandoned, criticized, or seen as selfish. But here's the cost. Every time you say yes when you mean no, you abandon yourself. You teach people that your boundaries don't matter. You build a life that doesn't belong to you. And society tells you this is noble, that self-sacrifice is virtuous, that putting others first makes you a good person. But what if your inability to say no isn't virtue? What if it's not generosity? What if it's a survival mechanism you learned in childhood, one that's now keeping you trapped? Let's look at what this actually looks like in your life. At work, someone asks you to take on an extra project. You're already buried, but you say yes, because saying no feels like admitting you're not capable, not dedicated, not good enough. A friend asks you to help them move. It's your only day off this month. You had plans, but you cancel them. You say yes, because saying no feels selfish. What kind of friend would you be? Your family expects you for dinner. You don't want to go, you need rest, but you show up anyway, because saying no feels like betrayal, like you're letting them down. Your partner wants something from you, attention, support, a favor. You're drained, but you give anyway, because saying no feels like rejection, like you're not loving enough. And here's the pattern. Every time you say yes, you feel resentful. Every time you give, you feel depleted. Every time you show up, you want to disappear. But you keep doing it, because the alternative, saying no, feels impossible. So you become the person everyone can count on, the reliable one, the helper, the giver, and everyone benefits. Except you. You're exhausted. You're resentful. You're living a life designed around everyone else's needs. And deep down, you're angry. Angry at them for asking, but mostly angry at yourself for never saying no. So where does this come from? For most people who can't say no, the pattern begins in childhood, specifically in an environment where your needs weren't safe to express. Maybe you grew up with a parent who was emotionally fragile, sensitive, easily upset, and you learned early your job is to keep them calm, to not be a burden, to be easy. So when you had needs, attention, comfort, help, you learned to suppress them, because expressing them made your parents stressed, overwhelmed, or angry, and that felt dangerous. You learned other people's emotions matter more than yours. Their comfort is your responsibility. Saying no is selfish. Or maybe your parents were critical. Nothing you did was good enough. Every mistake was pointed out, every flaw magnified. And you learned love is conditional. You have to earn it. You have to be perfect, helpful, obedient. So you said yes to everything. You became the good kid, the one who didn't cause problems, the one who made things easier, because saying no meant risking their approval, and their approval was the only safety you had. There's another pattern too. Maybe your parents were neglectful, physically present, but emotionally absent, and you learned the only way to get their attention is to be useful, to help, to give. So you became the child who anticipated their needs, who helped without being asked, who sacrificed to feel seen, because saying no meant becoming invisible again. and invisibility felt like death. Or perhaps you experienced anger, explosive, unpredictable anger. And you learned, saying no triggers rage, boundaries are dangerous, compliance is survival. So you became agreeable, accommodating, eager to please, not because you wanted to, but because disagreeing felt life-threatening. Here's what all these environments have in common. Your needs weren't safe, your boundaries weren't respected. Your no wasn't allowed, so you adapted. You learned that your value comes from what you give, not who you are. That love is transactional. You earn it by saying yes, and you lose it by saying no. And this wasn't your fault. You were a child. You were doing what you needed to do to survive in an environment that didn't feel safe. Your people-pleasing protected you. It kept you connected to caregivers who couldn't handle your autonomy. It prevented rejection, conflict, and abandonment. As a child, saying yes kept you safe. But here's the painful truth. You're not a child anymore. The people in your life now aren't your parents. The stakes aren't the same, but your nervous system doesn't know that. It's still running the same program. Say yes. Keep the peace. Don't rock the boat. Stay safe. Your people-pleasing saved you then. But now it's stealing your life. Let's talk about what's actually happening in your brain and body when you can't say no. First, there's something called Fawn response. You've probably heard of fight, flight, and freeze, your nervous system's reactions to threat. But there's a fourth, Fawn. And Fawn means appease the threat. Make yourself useful. Become what they need so they won't hurt you. For people who can't say no, Fawn is your default. When someone asks something of you, your nervous system doesn't see a request. It sees a test, a threat to connection, a risk of rejection. So you fawn, you comply, you say yes. Not because you want to, but because your body is trying to keep you safe. This is why saying no feels physically uncomfortable. Your amygdala, your brain's threat detector, interprets no as danger. So it floods your body with anxiety, racing heart, tight chest, nausea. Your nervous system is screaming, don't do it, don't say no. You'll be rejected. You'll be alone. And for someone whose childhood taught them that rejection equals danger, this fear isn't irrational. It's a survival response. There's also something called the external locus of worth. This is a psychological term for people who believe their value comes from outside themselves, from what they do, how they serve, whether others approve. You don't believe you're inherently valuable. You believe you have to earn value through usefulness, through sacrifice, through yes. So saying no feels like losing your worth. If you're not helping, who are you? If you're not giving, what's your purpose? Your identity is built on being needed, and saying no threatens that identity. Here's another layer, enmeshment. This happens when your boundaries with others are blurred, when you can't tell where you end and they begin, when their emotions feel like your responsibility. So when someone is disappointed, you feel it as your failure. When someone is upset, you feel it as your fault. Their discomfort becomes your emergency. This is why saying no feels cruel, because you're not just saying no to their request, you're feeling their disappointment as if it's happening to you. But here's what you need to understand. This isn't empathy. Empathy is feeling with someone while maintaining your boundaries. This is enmeshment, losing yourself in other people's needs. And finally, there's the core belief underneath all of this. If I say no, I'll be abandoned. This belief lives in your body, not your mind. It's not logical, it's ancient. It's the child in you who learned that compliance equals connection and boundaries equal rejection. And until you address that belief, until you prove to your nervous system that you can say no and still be loved, the pattern will continue. I need you to hear this. You are not weak for being unable to say no. You're not too nice. You're not a doormat. You're not spineless or pathetic or broken. You're someone whose nervous system learned that saying yes equals safety. And that's not your fault. As a child, your people-pleasing kept you connected. It prevented conflict. It made you valuable in an environment where your inherent worth wasn't recognized. And I want you to thank that part of yourself. Seriously, thank the people-pleaser in you, because it kept you safe when safety wasn't guaranteed. But here's where we shift from empathy to honesty. What kept you safe as a child is now hurting you as an adult. Your inability to say no is costing you. It's costing you your time, your energy, your peace. It's costing you authentic relationships because people don't know the real you. They know the yes version of you. It's costing you self-respect, because every time you abandon your needs to meet someone else's, you're telling yourself, I don't matter. My boundaries don't matter. My life doesn't matter. And here's the hardest truth. Most people in your life won't change their behavior. They'll keep asking. They'll keep expecting, because you've trained them to. You've taught them that you don't have boundaries, that you're always available, that your yes is guaranteed. And when you finally do say no, and you will eventually, they'll be surprised, confused, maybe even upset. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're disrupting a pattern they've come to rely on. And this is where you have to choose. Do you want their comfort, or do you want your freedom? Because you can't have both. You can't live authentically while constantly performing for others. You can't have boundaries while maintaining everyone else's comfort. Saying no will disappoint people. It will create friction. Some relationships will change. Some might even end. But the relationships that survive your boundaries, those are the real ones. Those are the people who love you. Not what you do for them, but who you are. And the relationships that don't survive, those were transactional. You were the giver, they were the taker. And losing those relationships isn't loss, it's liberation. You deserve relationships where you can say no and still be loved, where your needs matter as much as theirs, where you don't have to earn your place by saying yes, but no one will give you that. You have to claim it. So how do you actually start changing this pattern? Not through willpower, not by just being more assertive. You can't think your way out of a nervous system response. You have to rewire the pattern. And that starts with understanding that your people-pleasing isn't happening in your mind. It's happening in your body. When someone asks you for something, your nervous system reacts before your conscious mind even processes the request. Your body floods with anxiety, your throat tightens, and the word yes comes out as a survival reflex. So the first step isn't learning to say no, it's learning to pause. The pause is everything. When someone asks you for something, practice not answering immediately. Even if your reflex is screaming, yes, of course, no problem. Don't say it yet. Instead, say this, let me check my schedule and get back to you. Or I need to think about that. Can I let you know tomorrow? It sounds simple, but for someone who's been saying yes reflexively for years, this is revolutionary. Because in that pause, you create space. Space to feel what's happening in your body. Space to ask yourself, do I actually want to do this? Or am I just afraid of what happens if I don't? Most people pleasers have never asked themselves that question. They've been on autopilot for so long, they don't even what they want anymore. The pause gives you that back. It gives you choice. And here's what's powerful. When you start pausing, you're teaching the people around you that your yes isn't automatic, that it means something, that you're a person who considers their capacity before committing. Some people won't like this. They're used to your instant yes. They're used to your availability. And when you start creating space, they'll push back. That's information. That tells you who's in your life for you and who's in your life for what you give them. But pausing is only the beginning. The deeper work is retraining your nervous system. Yet saying no equals danger. That belief lives in your amygdala, not your rational mind. So you can't logic your way out of it. You have to give your nervous system new evidence. And the way you do that is through small, safe experiments. Don't start by setting a boundary with your most intimidating parent or your demanding boss. Start small. Start where the stakes are low. Say no to the coworker who asks for gum. Say no to the email survey. Say no to the optional work event. Say no to the friend who asks to borrow something small. Not because these things matter, but because you need to feel the sensation of saying no and surviving it. Your nervous system needs proof. It needs to learn through repetition that no doesn't lead to catastrophe, that you can disappoint someone and still be safe, that boundaries don't equal abandonment. Each small no is evidence, and over time, those small no's make the bigger ones possible. And as you practice this, something else has to shift. How you think about what saying no means. Right now, your nervous system interprets no as selfish, as cruel, as rejection. But that's the child in you speaking. The child who learned that their needs didn't matter, that their worth came from usefulness, that love was conditional on compliance. You're not that child anymore. And You need to give yourself a new definition of no. Saying no isn't selfish, it's self-respect. Saying no isn't cruel, it's honest. Saying no isn't rejection, it's boundary setting. When you say no to something that drains you, you're saying yes to yourself, to your needs, to your life, to your integrity. And that's not cruelty, it's courage. Start saying this to yourself, out loud if you need to. I am allowed to have limits. I am allowed to prioritize my needs. I am allowed to say no. Say it when you're tempted to say yes out of guilt. Say it when someone pushes back on your boundary. Say it until your nervous system starts to believe it. Because it's the truth. You've just never been allowed to live like it's true. Here's the philosophical reframe that changed everything for me. You cannot control how people respond to your boundaries. You can only control whether you have them. The Stoics understood this. They taught that we don't control external events, only our response to them. Your people-pleasing is an attempt to control the uncontrollable. It's trying to guarantee approval by never disappointing anyone. It's trying to prevent rejection by never having needs. But that's an impossible goal because you can't control other people's perceptions. You can't control whether they like you, approve of you, stay with you. The only thing you can control is whether you honor yourself. And the more you abandon yourself to keep others comfortable, the less of yourself remains. So here's the shift from external validation to internal integrity. Stop asking, will they be upset if I say no? Start asking, will I be okay if I say yes? Stop living for their comfort. Start living for your peace. And yes, people will respond to your boundaries. Some with understanding, some with disappointment, some with anger. And that's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to yourself, to protect your energy, to honor your needs, to live a life that's actually yours, not a performance designed to keep everyone else happy. Some relationships will shift when you start saying no. Some will deepen because finally you're showing up authentically, and some will end because they were built on what you could give, not who you are. And losing those relationships isn't loss, it's liberation. Because what you gain is infinitely more valuable than what you lose. You gain yourself, you gain time, energy, clarity. You gain relationships where you don't have to earn your place, where your no is respected as much as your yes, where you're loved for who you are, not what you do. You gain the ability to say yes and actually mean it, because your yes becomes a choice, not a compulsion. This isn't about becoming cold. It's not about never helping anyone. It's not about selfishness. It's about wholeness. It's about reclaiming the parts of yourself you've been giving away to keep others comfortable. And that reclamation, that's not cruelty. That's the most courageous thing you can do. Your inability to say no isn't a character flaw. It's a survival mechanism your nervous system developed because once saying yes kept you safe. But you're not that child anymore. You're an adult with agency, with choice, with the power to set boundaries. It won't be easy. Your nervous system will fight you. People will push back. You'll feel guilty, anxious, terrified. But on the other side of that fear is freedom. The freedom to live a life that's yours. To say yes because you want to, not because you're afraid to say no. To have relationships that honor all of you, not just the parts that give. Thanks for taking this mind trip with me. Until next time, take care of your mind.